You have found the Behind the Lines podcast for week 17 in the National Football League, the penultimate week of the regular season, now with each team playing 17 regular season games. My name is Stephen Andress, joined each and every week on this show by Christian Cipollini, sports trader at BetMGM. In this episode, we will look back at the week that was betting in the NFL in week 16, all those Christmas Eve and Christmas games. We will also look ahead to week 17 and the early week lines over at BetMGM, and I'll share any early week bets I might have here. Christian, how are you? How did Christmas treat you? Hopefully Santa brought some winning bets for you as well.
Yeah, it was okay for me, but I don't think it was the same for the public. The Christmas Day in particular was all those three standalone games were great for the books. So I hope the public did well, but Christmas Day didn't seem to be too good.
Yeah, I'm guessing if you didn't have the Tampa Bay Bucks teaser, then everybody got killed on that, because that line went from 4 to almost, I guess, 7.5. And once again, Tom Brady and the Bucks did not show up.
No, it's been the same story for the past few weeks with him, right? He just looks bad the first three quarters, and then when they have desperation, have no choice, turns it back on, and then they somehow find a way to eke out a win. But not covering was huge for the book there. That was actually one of our biggest outcome of the weekend. We weren't really writing many Cardinals bets. So,
yeah, I'm not exactly shocked that Trace McSorley wasn't an attractive bet for the public. But with that being said, what were some of the other winning bets for the book that week?
Yeah, all of Sunday, Christmas Day was big for the book. Packers Dolphins was another big one. Another one of our biggest ones of the weekend was Panthers Lions. Same thing. People were all over the Lions. They've looked great. We weren't writing many Panthers bets, and then that outcome was great for us. And same with Texans Titans. The Titans haven't looked great recently, but as we've talked about a few times on this show, we don't write many Texans bets, especially this season.
Yeah, guilty as charged on the Carolina Panthers. Our whole show was on the Lions again. Didn't really care that it was on the road, and Carolina just ran it straight down their throats with a couple of 100-yard rushers, and Sam Darnold was efficient again. So sets up a really interesting line in week 17, which we'll get to in a minute. But from what I'm seeing already, Christian, you're not going to have the same problem 2 weeks in a row of people not wanting to bet on the Carolina Panthers, at least from what I'm seeing here early on Tuesday. So, but before we get to those opening lines of week 17, give us at least a little bit of a silver lining here in the holiday season. What were some of the winners for the public in week 16?
Yeah, there were a couple on Saturday. Saturday was just kind of okay, but Sunday ended up being better, a lot of standalone games. But ones for the public were Bengals Patriots. Patriots kind of actually made a couple mistakes there that could have actually led them to cover, but that outcome ended up being pretty good for the public. And then Chiefs Seahawks was another good one for the public. Chiefs covering, even though they haven't in the past few weeks on a big number, was ideal for the public.
Yeah, Bengals backers happy with the result, maybe not as happy with the process after going up 22-0 in that game and almost letting it slip away. That was quite the sweat in the second half after what I'm sure they thought was an easy win for them with a big lead early. So welcome to the NFL, where no lead is safe apparently this year. That's certainly been the case to this point. The NFL playoff picture, just briefly here before we get into the week 17 lines, because this is going to come into play for a couple of the games in week 17. In the NFC, the 1, 2, 3, and 4 seeds are still the same: Eagles, Vikings, 49ers, and Buccaneers. The wild card teams are the Cowboys, Giants, and Washington, but we still have a bunch of teams only a half game behind Washington for that final playoff spot. It is the Seattle Seahawks, Detroit Lions, and Green Bay Packers also in the mix now. And obviously the Carolina Panthers still have a chance to win the division and get the 4 seed instead of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in that showdown this week. In the AFC, the Bills, Chiefs, Bengals are the 1, 2, and 3 seeds. No surprises there. The 4 seed is going to be the winner of the AFC South. The Jacksonville Jaguars are big favorites at the book at this point, shorter than -200, with Malik Willis now starting for the Tennessee Titans. The wild card teams are the Ravens at 5, the Chargers at 6, 1 game behind the Ravens. The 7, the Dolphins with Tua now in question for the remainder of the season. So that opens up some potential playoff path here for the 8 and the 9, the Patriots and the Jets, to get in and get that final spot, the 7 seed. So that's where we stand now with 2 weeks to go in the NFL playoff picture. But Christian, let's look ahead now to the opening lines at BetMGM for week number 17. And we will begin with Thursday night football. We got one good team, at least, in this game.
Yeah, Cowboys at the Titans. Cowboys are 10-point favorites here on the road with a 41-point total.
Yeah, obviously not going to be much interest in the Tennessee Titans, I don't think, at this point. I did see yesterday it did briefly go back to 9.5, but limits are rising and more Dallas money is coming in. You guys have them at 10. I'm seeing a 10.5 on the board already. And this is a situation, Christian, where I'm curious to ask you. The Tennessee Titans and the Jacksonville Jaguars play each other in week 18. The Jags could have like 5 different things happen where they could still get a wild card, but this is basically a showdown now, final week of the season, to who wins the division between the Jags and the Titans, making, ironically, a week 17 game really irrelevant to both of these teams. So you have that situation with the Tennessee Titans. Their starting quarterback's not playing. You might have more guys rest. How on earth do you make a line for this game?
Yes, these are the ones that are really, really frustrating. It's usually, and then this is the last week where you're trying to figure out if people are benching people, sitting their starters and all that. But yeah, this one's definitely a tough one to try to make odds for. The Titans have done this in the past. I think it was 2019. They had a similar situation where they had a meaningless game the week before and they ended up sitting Derrick Henry. So pretty much we just try to keep, our ears open and try to get as much info as we can, and we'll keep the limits low at first. This is a situation also where I don't imagine kind of either way we're going to take much Titans money. I'd imagine this is going to kind of sit here for the Cowboys, and we'll probably just keep taking bets on them. But yeah, really difficult to figure out.
I'm going to ask you a question, and the answer from you is going to have to be just pure speculation, but I just want to get your opinion on it. If the Titans rest a bunch of guys, including Derrick Henry, how far do you think this line could go? We're already sitting at 10. How far do you think it could go if news comes out the Titans are resting a bunch of their best players?
Yeah, I don't think it'll go too much farther. Derrick Henry's obviously the big one. Like, they already don't have Tannehill. They're kind of already pretty shorthanded as it is. So I wouldn't imagine it gets much more than 13, something like that. If they do end up starting, it would depend a lot on who they end up starting or, sitting. But Henry's really the only last big piece left.
Henry's the guy that's in the past, like last year, we have experience with this when he didn't play, where he was worth at least a point to the line, it seemed, even though he's a running back.
Yeah, exactly. He's of all the running backs in non-quarterback position, he's probably the one that could shift the line the most of like any other player.
And lastly, before we move on here, just an interesting point of reference for everybody. The look-ahead line for this game did come out before the Ryan Tannehill injury, and it was Cowboys -3. So now we're at -10. I think that's not necessarily a comment on Ryan Tannehill's talent and him being worth 7 points, but just the comparison to now having Malik Willis at quarterback and probably also some bettors getting ahead of maybe some guys resting here to have this big of a move for a game that doesn't involve an elite quarterback is just kind of a perfect storm of everything else happening here. I think that Ryan Tannehill, Christian, is not worth 7 points, right?
No, certainly not. I mean, it has a lot to do with the rest angle, also just kind of trend of how the Titans have been playing also too. I think naturally this, even if they were fully healthy and had something to play for, I think naturally it would have started shading towards the Cowboys in this direction anyway, just from recent history.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's move forward here to the 1:00 Eastern time slate on New Year's Day. And if my calendar memory is correct, this is Sunday, right? We don't have any Saturday games this week, I don't believe.
Yeah, all Sunday. College football's back for Saturday.
Yeah,
so we're
there
back
you go.
to
College
all
football
Sunday,
semifinals, all that.
Yep. So back to all Sunday for this
So yeah,
week.
take us through the 1:00 Eastern.
Cardinals at the Falcons. Falcons are 3.5-point favorites at home. That totals 41. Bears at the Lions. Lions are 5.5-point favorites. Pretty high total at 51.5. Broncos at Chiefs. Chiefs are 13.5-point favorites at home. That total is 45. Dolphins at the Patriots. Patriots are 2.5-point favorites with a 42.5-point total. That one is a sketchy one too because of Tua's recent injury. So that one has had a little bit of movement. Colts at the Giants. Giants are 5-point favorites at home with a 39.5-point total. Saints at the Eagles. Eagles are 6.5-point favorites with that total being 44. Panthers at the Bucks. Bucks are 3-point favorites with that total being 39. Browns at the Commanders. Commanders are 2.5-point favorites at home. Total 40.5. Last one of the 1 o'clocks is that Jags Texans game where Jags are 4-point favorites on the road here with a 43.5-point total.
That Jags Texans game was 5.5 on the look ahead here. We're now at 4. I assume this could also be another situation where we don't know yet as we record on Tuesday morning, Christian, but if the Titans could rest starters this week, then I assume the Jags could rest starters this week too against Houston.
Yeah, exactly. I think and you probably by the line can kind of tell that they might be less inclined to. They're kind of in a different situation to the Titans where they're kind of rolling. So it seems the speculation might be more towards, they're going to want to keep riding this momentum. They're playing a team they, in theory should beat up on. But yeah, the threat is definitely certainly there. And potentially even seeing something where, they get in, they only play a half or a quarter. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of still moving parts in that game.
Yeah, for sure. Might be worth a money line bet on the Texans here, to be honest. If the Jags are going to pull starters at some point, the Texans have shown they're at least willing to still be competitive and do the best they can, whatever that means for the Houston Texans. But they've at least been moving the ball much better with Davis Mills back in at quarterback at this point for Houston. Working backwards here at some of these other 1 o'clock games, just want to point out some of the line movement. You mentioned the Miami Dolphins and New England Patriots now with the Tua news that he's back in the concussion protocol. I believe you said the Patriots are -2.5 at home in that game. The look ahead was Dolphins -2.5. So a 5-point flip here. And obviously earlier this season, we saw the Dolphins went winless in the games where Tua was not on the field. Wouldn't surprise me in the least if this gets up to the key number of 3. Already seeing some of your competitors with a juiced -115 on that -2.5. So I think we're headed towards the key number of 3 there. The Denver Broncos and that dumpster fire, Nathaniel Hackett now out of the building. That line was 10 on the look ahead, and now we are at 13.5. So, good luck writing Broncos tickets this week, Christian. That's another one I think you're going to have a hard time getting some action on.
Yeah, I don't imagine we're going to get many of those too. Yeah, I've heard a couple rumors of even the potential of just benching Russell Wilson for the rest of the season. Yeah, we're not. Very, very little. Yeah,
even if they bench him, I mean, what's that?
That might get more. That might help them. Out of him then, yeah. Just judge it from what we had in the past. So.
Yeah, I mean, he's just like the low-hanging fruit at this point. I mean, we all love to hate Russell Wilson at this point with his brutal self-awareness, and I'm sure I would tell him to his face, but I have to call his manager to tell him to his face first. So, the Saints at the Eagles is interesting to me as well. This was 5.5 on the look ahead. We weren't sure what to do with going from Jalen Hurts to Gardner Minshew, but it's at least interesting to me that the price is more expensive on the Eagles now that we have a game under our belts to see what this offense looked like. And they look fine minus the turnovers, right? So -5.5 to now -6.5 for the Eagles.
Yeah, there's still rumblings that Hurts could play too. So that's another one that's got a couple of different question marks for us. We briefly did go to Eagles -7 and ended up coming back to 6.5. We'll still wait on a little more info. But besides the turnovers, Gardner Minshew was moving the ball, but yeah, the turnovers were an issue. But they're playing a much weaker opponent in the Saints than the Cowboys. So
Okay, and the last game I'm going to ask you about in this window is that pivotal game in the NFC South between the Tampa Bay Bucks and the Carolina Panthers. These two teams played earlier this year in, let's see, when was it? It was in week 7. The Panthers crushed the Bucks 21-3, despite the fact that the Bucks were a 13-point road favorite in that game. And now we fast forward to this week, and the Bucks are only a 3-point home favorite, which means on a neutral field, you guys are basically saying the Bucks are only about a point and a half better than the Carolina Panthers, which is stunning to me with how this has played out since week 7. But this line obviously is a massive downgrade for the Bucks and or a massive upgrade for the Carolina Panthers. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's probably more so a little bit of both too. The Panthers have looked great, and the Bucks have looked pretty awful in the past few weeks. Just kind of gotten lucky to sneak by and find a way to win at the end. But and this is obviously a pretty meaningful game. Pretty much the winner is going to get into the playoffs. But yeah, the Panthers have looked good since trading away their best player in Christian McCaffrey, and pretty much ever since they've kind of starting to get on a little roll here.
Over the past month, they're near the top of the league in terms of offensive EPA per play. Their defense is still struggling a little bit, but hard to argue with what they're doing on offense. And I believe I'm seeing, tell me if your screen still says the same thing here. I'm seeing 3, but minus 115 on the Carolina Panthers here. So at least some early week action here on the dog that if this continues will push us towards 2.5 and off that most key number of 3.
Yeah, I mean, so far we have seen the sharps are leaning towards the Panthers at least early on, and where we're sitting. Maybe if it goes to 2.5, then maybe they want to start coming the other way. But yeah, so far they're leaning towards the Panthers.
Just really interesting after what that line was in the first meeting between these two teams. That's I know we say this a lot, and our memory is not great for long distance stuff, but for the same two teams to play again and no like major star to not be in the game and to go from a line of 13-3 is just wild. And I really hate myself whenever I bet the Bucks this year because it's just brutal to watch. And I was lucky to even get the teaser leg on Christmas. But if this goes to 2.5, I might be betting the Bucks and just plug my nose and not even watch the game. I don't know. Oh, man. More on the Megapod. We'll see if I take the plunge again with this terrible team and this awfully coached team as well. All right. Afternoon window here on New Year's Day, Christian. The 4:00 Eastern time slate games.
49ers at the Raiders. 49ers are 5.5 point favorites on the road. Totals 44.5. Jets at the Seahawks. Jets are 2.5 point favorites on the road. Totals 42.5. Vikings at the Packers. Packers are 3-point favorites, juiced a bit to the Packers, and that totals 47. And last in this 4:00 window, Rams at the Chargers. Chargers are 6.5 point favorites with a 40.5 point total.
The Jets Seahawks line is what stands out to me. Both of those teams playing for a wild card spot now. Loser is in all likelihood going to be eliminated or need like a million things to go their way. The look ahead line on this game was Seahawks minus 1.5. We get the news that Mike White has been cleared. So now we're flipped the other way to 2.5. Still mostly meaningless numbers, Christian. When it's less than 3 both ways, that's mostly meaningless numbers, right? For the novice bettors out there.
Yeah, pretty much is saying it's close to a pick 'em. And a lot of times those games that stay under 3 can tend to shift kind of back and forth. Like how we said, this one did open up earlier at Seahawks at the favorite, hung around to pick 'em for a bit. And then once Mike White was announced, we started moving towards the Jets. I wouldn't be surprised if it kind of starts trickling a little bit back, but kind of see what happens.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. But if for whatever reason this does get the Jets minus 3 on the road, then I will be interested in Seattle in this game because I just don't think Mike White is that big of an upgrade. I mean, Zach Wilson is terrible, but Mike White is still a below average quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion. That Minnesota Vikings Packers game, we usually record on Mondays. I did make a note to take a look. So Christian is right. As we record right now, it's 3, but on Monday this was 3.5. So there was some early interest here on the Vikings, Christian.
Yeah. Which kind of, a lot of times when there's a hook there, people kind of start jumping on it, especially the sharper bettors early on in the week. So it does make sense sometimes if you do see that hook on a Sunday night, early Monday morning, it might not be there later in the week.
All right, let's look at the primetime games for week 17.
Steelers at the Ravens. Ravens are 3-point favorites here, and the lowest total of the weekend at 36. And then Monday Night Football, pretty good one. Bills at Bengals. Bills are 1-point favorites here on the road with a 49.5-point total.
This line more likely a Tyler Huntley line still at this point, I assume, for the Ravens?
Yeah, another one where we're still up in the air. Lower limit kind of game, still trying to wait on it. You can kind of tell by that 36-point total. That's one that if it's Lamar, you'd like to say. Yeah, I'd imagine that one higher. Goes. Yep, exactly.
That Cincinnati Bengals Buffalo Bills game is interesting because it is the first game for Bengals fans where they can legally bet on their team, Christian. And if you go to thelines.com/Ohio, you will find the sign-up bonus for BetMGM to be able to bet on the Bengals and do it fully legally. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Ohio sports fans. So at thelines.com, we have a great sign-up bonus for you. If you go to thelines.com/Ohio, I will be in Cincinnati for that game as well, talking to some fans, getting some content for everybody on our social media channels. But that is the early week bet that I have made this week. It's going to be a 6-point teaser. Now, I made this yesterday when the Bengals were plus 1.5 and teased them up to 7.5. And I paired it with the Cleveland Browns at plus 2.5 up to plus 8.5. So an Ohio sports betting launch teaser extravaganza, if you will, between these two teams. So right now you said it's still at 1, right? We moved down a little bit.
Yeah, we're at Bills -1.
Okay, so keep an eye on it, and if that does go back down to 1.5, then we're in teaser territory there at plus 7.5. But again, if you go to thelines.com/Ohio, you will see the offer from BetMGM. You'll get $200 in bet credits just by hitting the sign up now button, and then once sports betting goes live on New Year's Day, you'll be able to use those free in your account as well. So welcome to the club, Ohio. You are quickly entering the world of legal sports betting, and we are happy to have you. And what better way to kick it off in the Cincinnati area with the game of the week and one of the games of the year between the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals. Christian, final question for you on that note. You have the Bengals as 1-point dogs at home here, which means on a neutral field, you have them no more than a field goal worse than the Buffalo Bills at this point. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, they've really turned it around from they've struggled really early on in the season, and now they kind of look like this team that went to the Super Bowl last year. So a lot of early on in the season, we were talking about Chiefs and Bills. They're the two in the AFC, and it's definitely the Bengals have definitely creeped into that conversation. Probably just slightly below those two teams. But that's where we currently have them rated, and they're playing well and definitely deservedly so here.
And your Super Bowl futures reflect that as well. This is a team that a few weeks ago was longer than 10-1. They were in that double-digit tier of teams, and now they are in. They now make a group of 5 with Super Bowl odds shorter than 10-1 over at BetMGM. It's the Bills at plus 350, Chiefs plus 450, along with the Eagles at the same price, 49ers at 6-1, Bengals at plus 750 to round out that top 5 tier of teams in terms of Super Bowl futures. So hopefully that was helpful for everybody. We love having you on, Christian. Love having this insight directly from the book itself. We hope everybody out there has a happy and safe new year. Again, welcome to the club, Ohio. We'll see you on New Year's Day for legal sports betting, and best of luck, everybody, with your bets in NFL week number 17.